Meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order on August 8th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Alderperson Alms.
Here.
Alderperson Hall.
Here.
Alderperson Morissette.
Here. Minutes from the regular meeting, July 17, 2019.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hey, John, you missed roll call,
Oh, God.
so now you have to stand up and sing.
Good luck with that.
You don't want me doing that.
Okay, we're gonna jump right in. Number 3, discussion possible action on the speed hump policy. This is a holdover of Joyce's items. Joyce, if you wanna,
All right, so I sent to Melanie the two items, the speed hump policy from Minneapolis, and then the list of steps that the neighborhoods have to go through in order to have one installed. And so Minneapolis is, they're updating this policy because of a couple of different things. First of all, if you notice that step 5 is paying $7,500 for the pair of speed humps, affluent areas can easily raise that money, where less affluent areas have trouble with raising that money and would need to find grant money. They're working on a Vision Zero initiative with 0 traffic deaths. And then also Minnesota passed a law that municipalities will be able to change speed limits, so they may need fewer speed humps. At this time, they don't, you notice that it doesn't have there in this list of steps that they would have to require a documented speed issue, so they, if the neighborhoods want it and they are willing to pay for it, they can get the speed hump installed. But their next policy will probably have require a documented speed issue. I think the biggest issue for Hudson is going to be how to take care of the $7,500 per pair of speed bumps. And Mike said it about 6,000, but you know, we're in the right ballpark. So Mike suggested that we try temporary speed bumps first. They can be removed for the winter. And they're about $2,100 each, so it would be a good way of testing the concept and seeing.
so what parameter, what's gonna be your start point? If we decide to put it in over there, what qualifies us to say, yes, we'll put those temporary ones over there, before we start setting a precedence and having everybody who wants speed bumps come through the city? What's the trigger? And I like this policy.
Yeah.
But I don't want to start down the road of everybody coming.
No, I understand. So, I think that we would have to, they don't have a documented safety issue. It's up to the community to decide whether they want one. It's up to the block. So we would have to develop criteria.
Okay. I agree, because we do have, we do have associations pay for things as we have gone along.
Yes.
And I like that. 'Cause that's a big chunk of change for the city to absorb. And if they all start coming down wanting it, there's no way we can afford it.
And I know that because, you know, we've got roads that we need to replace that are, you know, before we start putting in speed humps. But I still think that this is something that we should continue to look at. And so I think we need to start developing criteria for that. And also, I think we need to look for grants to pay for testing the concept.
So who's gonna look for grants? Is that you? Are you gonna be on the council forever? I mean, who's continuing that? So
Yeah.
there's some things we have to answer there as well.
Right.
Bill, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that that would be as a staff function to your last point. I think it's good to define a policy now as these conversations are happening, what that looks like. I mean, is that something that you are putting together, the sort of the structure
Nuts
of
and
it?
bolts of it?
Or,
Well, I just got this information today.
yeah, right.
You haven't had much time to absorb it.
No,
Same
I
here,
haven't.
yep, right.
So, and then Mike just brought up the suggestion of getting, and looked up the cost of temporary speed humps too. And I've seen them, because I go through Star Prairie when I used to go up to Balsam Lake twice a week, and they had one there, and, you know, it worked well.
I didn't see I know the bank has one at Citizens.
Yes,
That's
there's
the
one
same
there.
type?
Yeah, well, it's not the same type, but, you know, similar kind of thing. And then if you want to see one, WITC in New Richmond has one in, heading into their parking lot too, so they're using them.
I assume with the temporary ones, though, you're slowing a lot more than the elongated? Is
Yes,
that-
you would.
That's almost kind of really slowing down. I think I've done the Star Prairie one.
Okay.
Because it kind of goes in a back road or whatever that you
Yeah,
gotta
it's
cut
on,
through.
yep.
Right? And I think that intention is to really slow it down. That would be my only concern, would be how much, to what degree are we trying to slow the traffic down? And
Yeah.
Police department have a position? No thoughts?
No.
Let's bring it back next month.
Okay, is that what you want to do?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. They'll give us time to think about all of this and process it, and,
I think you've got a good start there, but
Yeah.
I'm still not in favor of putting speed bumps unless there's a structured policy of how and why. And going forward, so we don't have that mass.
no, I agree. It's like sidewalks.
Yeah.
Yep, so let's plan on continuing the discussion next time.
Okay. I don't think we need a formal motion for that. Number 4, discussion possible action on the installation of steps to access Prospect Park off 3rd Street. As you all both know, it's come from council on Monday.
Yeah.
Boy, I really have some concerns moving that up further around to the blind spot.
Yeah.
That 3rd Street has been an issue for years of people walking up it. People, I don't know how many drunk drivers have gone up that hill and well, take a look at the rails. It's all bent to heck because of people hitting it.
Yeah, I drove through there, but I was just really just looking to see where the site was that he was planning to put in the stairs, and I wasn't looking at the rest of the streets.
And that's right after that curve, right? The big
The
curve?
first one, yes. If you're coming down
Right into
this
the-
way,
into the curve.
right after the pump house. lift
Right,
Station.
right.
I'm just really concerned. I like the idea of getting the stairs back there,
Yes.
but the wrong spot.
What about sidewalk on the other side? And would that be, it's really about them crossing the street there, correct?
Yeah, because if the car comes around that first,
Right.
those corners, it's a blind spot. Now,
Exactly.
granted, there's not a ton of traffic, but once we build it, who knows what we have?
Right.
There's my concern. So, if
Do we-
anything, I'd say put it back where it was and then plan accordingly to pay more. I hate to say that because I don't think $85,000 for a pair of steps to nowhere is a good policy.
Right.
But everybody wants to connect Hudson on with all these dang trails and bike trails. It costs money. And nobody cares because they think City Hall has all the money for all these bike paths. It's ridiculous. I know you.
We know better. You're preaching to the choir.
I'll get off that.
So,
I just think we need to be careful, and I don't know if that's the right spot. What's your thoughts,
I agree.
Lieutenant?
No position really for that.
Don't you think it's a safety issue?
Potentially, I haven't really looked at it a whole lot as far as, I know where the old stairs were, there was a sidewalk that led right up to those stairs, so I don't know if that is going to happen in this case. Are they gonna build a sidewalk to lead up to this new set of stairs?
No, they use the one on the west side.
So you'd have to cross the street?
So you're coming up here, and this is right around that curve. They're crossing the street. And that's where our safety concern is. As people come around there far too often fast,
Yeah,
too fast for the road,
correct.
potentially with some pedestrians crossing.
What do you think, Josh? I know you guys don't go up there that often, but
Well,
Chase
we-
Vehicle comes running down.
We do, but, so it's gonna be right on the corner by the well house or pump house that they put there? I think it's bad to put it in the middle of a corner, middle of an S-curve. I'd put it, I mean, back where it was, halfway up the hill, but not quite sure why you need a set of steps that go up there, but
I
I
just
think,
told you.
I think if you absolutely decide you need steps, I think the old spot was probably the best because of the access to the sidewalk right there.
Yeah.
He was saying that this was I think as he looked at it,
natural
more natural,
topography.
right?
Okay.
So it's cheaper to build it there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Quite
Not a
frankly,
less of a
steep
height,
grade.
yep.
yeah.
Were the original stairs, okay, so on this Smart Connect map that's in our agenda,
Whatever the end of the sidewalk.
were the original steps right here where this loop is, or?
You can kind of, as you ever drive up, you can see the path going up the side of it.
right about there.
Okay,
So,
yeah. So connecting to that loop is a good way to do it, too.
so what do you think about bringing this back to either go with the old location of the stairs or have a sidewalk to the east side of Third Street, all the way to the stairs so that there is no crossing? You know, have them look at those two options?
Well, I guess you could send that back to Public Works and let them dig it out and figure out.
Yeah, but
much
I mean,
would
the
it
cost of the sidewalk is probably going to be similar or
Correct.
more
Correct.
doing the stairs up to that.
That's
at
one
least-
alternative, or
Yeah.
just move it back to where it was.
Right,
So there's two options. We could recommend to Public Works to let them decide.
okay.
We've expressed our concerns, the chiefs have expressed their concerns about where it's, where they want to put it, but it just does not fit with safety.
Yeah, I'm looking at the aerial view of that road and how it curves in that area, and that's not a good spot for it. I agree with you. All right, I'll make the motion to send it back to Public Works with the suggestion that they look into extending the sidewalk to the new spot for the stairway, or to look into putting the stairway in the original spot.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Discussion possible action on first responder and the dive team program. We'll take these separately, and the first one we'll take is first responders. It's my strong opinion that we hold this over until at least the first of the year, as to let the new service get into, settled in and do their thing. That's my opinion. And I would move that we do that.
I'll second that.
So,
Discussion.
okay, so how will we track, what information will we be tracking and how will we track it?
I'd rather them focus on getting acclimated to what they need to do as a full service for our ambulance before we start interjecting first responders.
Okay, so then the police will be the first responders as
At
needed?
this point, I would assume that that's what they do anyways, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we'd get data through the police department on how often first responders are needed.
Sure, if you wanted to track that.
I think it is important to start tracking it right away.
And the other,
But sometimes it does depend on the level of our response too. We're not technically first responders in the sense that You know, you have first responder training, and then you have EMT training. So we a lot of times show up as first responders to assist EMS, or if it's a crucial emergency, to give CPR, stop bleeding, that type of critical emergency. But a lot of the stuff that's lesser, we don't respond to if we're tied up on other issues.
Okay.
What kind of information, data are you want to collect?
Well, I'd just like to know how often the police are needed to respond to an emergency where there isn't an ambulance available, within the next 10 minutes, or, because the nearest ambulance is across the river, or we have to call
You're
for
making
mutual
an
aid.
assumption there.
Yeah, all right, but,
I don't foresee that.
First
John?
responders really aren't designed, they're there to assist the ambulance.
Okay.
They're not there to lessen the gap of an ambulance showing up.
Okay.
We all know that there's gonna be an ambulance there. But, I think relying on the police department's a bad idea, because that's gonna hold them officers there until Lakeview gets a truck there. And if there's something else bad going on in town, them officers can't leave. So,
I was just gonna comment that, we're gonna report our data to you. You're gonna see what our response times were, and so you're not gonna need to rely on the police department to give you that data. We're gonna share that data with
Okay.
you, and we'll give you ongoing, updated response times, so I think that part of it, we're fully supportive of the police department sticking with that role and providing that, and we will help them in any education they need or the supplies they need to perform that level of care.
Josh, do you have a recommendation?
my recommendation would be for some sort of first responder thing, whether it's all calls or, Charlie and up, Charlie Delta Echo calls and up. But, that's that's a decision that city council needs to make, or maybe public safety needs to make on what they want to see in the city.
And Joyce, let me make it very clear, it's not that I'm saying no, by all means.
No, you're,
But I think our focus needs to let the service get started it up and get out of the gate strong before we tackle the first responders. It doesn't mean you can't do some working policies or whatever you think you want to present come January 1st. Or this committee, as far as that's concerned. But right now, I just think they need that time to get involved.
And I think there's a place for that committee that yet needs to be formed, right? The oversight committee to the Lakeview service, to get that, that's.
Which is part of the contract.
right,
We
okay.
need to define, obviously, who those members are. I know that it will be at least one of us, right, in this committee, to sort of see what that data is as well.
Okay, so what is the status of the oversight committee then? Nothing's been done on that yet, has it?
I think we can get to that number, the next item.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, true.
Just one thing to remember, though, is I hold the license for the first responder groups that are currently.
So you'll have to be part of that conversation.
As soon as we're done, that license goes away, so.
Okay. Make sure you got that in the minutes, please.
You currently have Town of Hudson first responders. Is that under your licensure, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the village of North Hudson.
So if I can just add to the conversation here too, I appreciate the fact, Mr. Chair, that you're saying that you'd like to wait till we get our thing up and running. We're really a month away from getting that up and running, so we do have a lot of things to complete before we do that, so that's very helpful. We are currently working on a plan, and I bring it up here because I mentioned it at the Village in North Hudson board meeting Tuesday night, that we want to propose an idea of having a first responder group that is a Hudson first responder group, that's more of a regional group and not just one for the town of Hudson, one for the Village of North Hudson, the city, and then Troy. So we've already had conversations. Josh has helped pave some of that process in bringing people together that are willing to do that. So
I think that makes complete sense.
Yeah, and I think the work will continue regardless if we're doing anything in the city of Hudson before September 9th. We'll continue that work because that's a promise we've made to the town of Hudson and mentioned it at the village. So that's where we're at with it right now.
So what is involved with getting a first responder license for the area?
Just have to write an operational plan.
Okay,
You know, everybody that's involved and, you know, from each municipalities and the transporting ambulance service, and they'll have to sign the document and then it goes to the state to be reviewed.
okay. Do you have a copy of the current operational plan? So that would be, it's a full operational plan for St. Croix EMS? Or is it, there's a separate operational plan
You can
for?
use the current one that we have now, it just has to be updated.
Josh, grab the mic closer to you.
It just has to be updated, and then we just send it to the state.
Okay,
It just has an update that we're including the city of, City of Hudson, Town of Hudson, Village of North Hudson, and then Troy Township wants to get into it. You just update your plan, send it to the state, and they send back yay or nay, whether they approve it or not.
okay.
Irregardless of the first responder program, and it's under Josh's licensure now
Yeah.
as St. Croix EMS, is that something that transfers to, are you doing a new operational
Yep.
plan for this?
Yep, we would have to, when St. Croix EMS is officially done, then we'll have to, the operational plan for the first responder group would have to fall under Lakeview's license.
And that needs to be done in scope? Would you, in other words, do you need everything defined as to where this first, you know what I mean?
Yeah, in the operational plan, you have to include maps in the area that they'd be covering, and the first responder groups they're not as strict with those groups, and I don't even know if it's in rule that it's required. It's recommended at the state level that first responder groups complete an operational plan. They encourage the counties to not allow first responders to operate if they don't have an operational plan, which leads you to believe when you read the statute on it that they don't really have there's not a clear cut, you have to have this operational plan completed like you do to operate an ambulance service. So it is clear for an ambulance service.
Did I answer your question, kind of?
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of gives us a little direction.
Yeah, I just,
Because it's a little bit more involved in saying, yes, we're doing it. John, you're in charge. We're done.
oh, I understand that. I'm just uncomfortable with not having a formal first responder program in place.
Again, but you don't have one today.
We haven't had one for a while, have we?
We've never had one in the city,
Had one in the city?
besides police department. Or staff, obviously staff that lives here, if it's something bad, obviously they'll wander out of their house and go to the call, but
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No,
We'll talk about it at council.
yeah, I know.
Okay, dive team program. I know Glenn's here. Thank you for being here too. You want to say anything before we start? Yeah. State your name and,
Yep, Glenn Hartman. I'm one of the patrol sergeants for the police department. So just a little bit of history. So when the whole discussion about the dive team and transitioning it to another entity, one of the things that we discussed, that Chief Willems and I discussed was, as well as Chief St. Martin, was transitioning the dive team to one of those two entities. And then Chief Willems and I met on several occasions, and it looked like that the probably transitioning to a law enforcement team might not be a bad idea from the standpoint of just logistics and everything, and we just felt that this probably might not be a bad idea. So in any case, I moved forward with a meeting with a Ramsey County Dive Team Coordinator, as well as meeting and talking with Washington County, and Deputy O'Hare is here to talk about the Washington County Dive Team and how they operate. So I think it's important to understand a little bit too about what Jeff and I are kind of envisioning. So I recommended potentially running a reserve program for the police department. We used to have a CSO program, as many of you are aware, maybe not. Jeff is contemplating budgeting again for that. If that comes to fruition, great. So we're kind of looking at it from two different perspectives. Either folding the dive team into some kind of a CSO project, or remaining more of a reserve program. One's paid, one's not. So that runs into a whole nother, set of conditions and conversation that we would need to have. But that would take a lot of time to really sit down. And Jeff and I need to kind of find out more about we need to get some direction as far as how we want to move forward with this, right? So what I'm kind of proposing is Deputy O'Hare is going to speak a little bit about their program in Washington County, which is very interesting. They do have an all-volunteer component to their reserves in Washington County, which I was not aware. I thought it was just all part of their reserve program. But they do have an all-volunteer dive team, which I think would be kind of interesting to hear about. So I invited him here to discuss their program. I think it has value. I think it's something that, given the individuals that I have on the team now, there is probably going to be a question of a ramp up as far as training and whether or not these existing divers are really going to want to kind of fold into a law enforcement model. There's that part of it as well. So we may be starting from scratch is what I'm getting at, which is fine. I'm an instructor and we can certainly do that. It's not a big deal. But it's not going to be as quick or easy a transition that maybe at first glance we thought it was going to be. In short.
I have a question for you. So
Yeah.
do you have any concerns, or is there any difference reporting through the police structure between recovery and rescue?
So Deputy O'Hare is going to speak to that a little bit as well. We discussed that. We're right now have a rescue component to it. And I didn't think of this till speaking with them, but they can incorporate or do kind of incorporate a rescue component based on logistics. So what does that mean? It means, are there divers that are in the area that could respond quickly if necessary to effectively rescue somebody? Ice comes to mind, right? That's usually our best, what we train the most for, right? So I think what you're asking is that something that we at first looked at and I was going to kind of forget that aspect of it.
Gotcha.
And just focus on recovery, which is essentially most traditional law enforcement teams are.
Sure.
Few have a rescue component. They usually leave that to the fire departments or rescue teams like we have here. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the reporting part of it is going to be different. This is some of the questions that we're going to need to address, right? For sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think, I know that my opinion, and I believe the mayor's opinion, is to keep it in the police department, so that is the direction that they want to go.
Right, I know you guys began to discuss, and this is what kind of brought me here tonight as well, was the fact that there was some discussion about folding it into a first responder unit. Now, there's wisdom in that as well. I think, I'm not discounting any of that. I really frankly don't, I want to see the team succeed and continue because of the hard work that we put into it.
As well as does the rest of the council, and
Yep.
it just seems like it could be, just stay status quo right now as it is, And I don't mean that flippantly, but just, you're under that.
I don't know. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Randy, and that sounds great on paper. The only problem is that if somebody, right now, if a diver gets injured, we're covered under a workman's comp umbrella. If St. Croix, when St. Croix EMS, ceases to exist, then there becomes some question as to what is it going to fall under, what set of guidelines. I mean, I get a stipend for what I do, but that role is very limited in scope. So, there's a lot to discuss about how we want to envision that. So, I mean, I know what you're saying. I'd like to see it keep it going as well, but I want to protect my people too.
Any other questions real quick before we have Deputy come up? Deputy, you're on, I guess. Glenn's putting you under the gun.
Well, I prepared
pun
him at least.
intended.
It's not too bad. He's a pretty smart guy. So okay.
You can just tell me to just show up and we'll discuss. So, I guess right now I oversee our volunteer unit, our reserve unit, and then I assist with our dive team. Commander Skank is off today, so he wasn't able to attend. He actually is the one that oversees our dive unit. But I can answer the questions to the best of my ability for you if you have any.
I think Bill's between recovery and rescue is the big question.
So obviously the rescue side of it is the immediacy response. That's mainly covered by our fire departments in the county. We have a Washington County Fire Rescue Dive Team. It's a conglomeration of the fire departments that train together, and also train, I know, with Lakeview on water rescues as well. And then we have the law enforcement side, our dive recovery team, that does the majority of the delayed response when we're actually looking for a recovery side of it. We have a mix of both sworn and volunteer divers and tenders. So we do have the volunteer component, and then we have also sworn deputies who are also on our team.
And the insurance umbrella you're under, is it the...
MCIT, yeah, it would fall under traditional workman's comp. So all of our volunteers are covered by us while on duty or while
The police
on our
department
call.
or under...
By under the sheriff's office.
Sure, okay.
Yep. Or if they're with another entity, it may fall, so if Sergeant Hartman were to come out, it would probably fall under Hudson.
Including volunteers, are they under...
Yes, yep, all of our volunteers are covered under ours as well.
Okay.
But the rescue is still covered by the individual fire departments along the river, or?
For the most part, just because they have the ability to go out there quickly, we oftentimes will stage. We have had some immediate responses depending on the calls, and again, like you said, people nearby and the nature of the call more so. A lot of times we get a call of a person in the water hasn't been seen for a while. There really is no immediate response to it. It's more of a investigative response.
Joyce, you got any questions? Or
No, I'm just taking notes about the,
Chief Josh?
The only thing that's different for us between St. Croix EMS and Lakeview is that we get a medical, and I know this is a little bit out of what we're talking about, but medicals on the river are handled by St. Croix EMS. So we go down to the boat, we go out on the river, and we obviously start all initial stuff out there. That's going to be the only difference. I don't know what Lakeview's plan is or John's plan is as far as handling medicals on the river, because fire department doesn't respond. We'll usually get EMS and an officer from police department if they're available.
The negotiation, John, wasn't that you always use Washington County for that rescue, and recovery was...
There's a lot of boats now available to us. We got Bayport Fire's got a new boat, Stillwater Fire's got a boat that's docked on the river. Bayport's right across the river from here at Bayport Marina. And then we got Lower St. Croix Valley down in the lower part. The sheriff's department's out there quite a bit, but typically our response is going to be with fire. So we respond to their fire boat, get on their boat with them, and then we go out on the call with them. So, one of the things about the river calls is you never know where the 911 calls, which center it's going to hit. So a lot of times we get calls north of Stillwater that hit in St. Croix County, and then you got both sides of the river going at the same time. So we just try and coordinate with whoever can get us out there to respond to the river. So I don't have a perfect answer to it, how you'd get out there, but again, we've responded to calls in St. Joseph Township that turn out to be in the river, and then we call Stillwater Fire and say, hey, we need your boat to come over to this side of the river because we're 400 feet up on the cliff, or 200, whatever it is. So there's ways to work around that.
Okay.
Either way, you need to hitch a ride.
We need to hitch a ride, or they bring them to us. Now, a lot of times the sheriff's department will, they're out there, they pick the person up. If they can get them to us quicker than it is for us to get out there, I would say that's your response most of the time, is you meet us at Sunnyside Marina or Beanie's Resort, wherever. That's what happens a lot of times. Or even the boat themselves is on 911 saying, we're transporting to X location, and our ambulance meets them there. So, with the volume of traffic that we have on the river, we don't do a lot of calls out on the river. We pick them up at a dock somewhere.
Okay. Any other questions for the deputy? Certainly appreciate you taking the time to come over.
Thank you.
Glenn?
Yeah, just one last thing. And so, the reason I had Deputy Hare come over here too is also to kind of just to introduce you to the idea of a joint partnership with Washington County. That was something else that we discussed. Now, the beauty of that moving forward is the ability then to share equipment. That's also a big part of this.
Is that something you gotta work through yet?
Yes.
So
Well-
this, you probably don't want any formal action then tonight?
No.
Okay.
No, what I need to do moving forward is to educate all of you as far as what the options are, right? So how we're going to, moving forward, how do we want to envision this? Because before, the majority of the costs involved was done through St. Croix EMS as far as budgeting, but the lion's share of our equipment, some of the other things that we've done have been through robust fundraising, which I've started the 501c3, which we're going to be completing here shortly. Though there's not a ton of money in it, moving forward, what I would like to do is still continue with some of our fundraising efforts, right?
Yeah.
So even though it might be with the police department, it might be with some kind of first responder, I still think that there's some value to
Well,
that.
recognizing that the council and the finance committee is here, there's ways that we can obviously address that budgetary issue with the police department in our next cycle to accommodate the dive team, because it's a fact that the city council and the mayor want a dive team.
Well, and we're ahead of the curve here because obviously the infrastructure is already there.
Correct.
So we already have all of the equipment that we need. We're very robust. I mean,
An MOU is what you're looking for to do.
yeah, but the beauty of Washington County, we're partnering with some of these other dive teams, is the fact that they take it to a whole new level as far as the equipment that they have. I mean, they just are light years ahead of where we are.
Okay.
Right?
And St. Croix County does not have a dive team.
So, okay, so this is another one of those things that we need to discuss, and that I've had those conversations with, with Chief Willems. So it's a little bit of a rabbit hole to start going down in that right now, but to answer your question, yes, they do, but they partner with Washington County.
Sure.
So the short answer is yes, but it's not nearly as robust as our team. We have more staff, we've got more equipment, and so I think we bring a little bit more to the table than they would, but.
So Glenn, coining a phrase from Bill Alms, at the end of the day, we want a dive team. So stay in contact with Melanie for getting on this agenda, so once you start building your operations and kind of go through what you need to get through with both other departments, keep bringing it back here so we can talk it and move it forward. You have the support we want you here. We'll figure out how to do the number game.
Yeah, I think that's great, Randy. So I would just say, moving forward, I'm going to put a plug in for a little bit for Chief Willems. He is going to probably be asking for that CSO program. I really think that to really bring our department into a 21st century model as far as policing and public safety, that CSO component is very important.
Spell that out for the public on TV.
For CSO?
Yeah.
So we used to have a community service program, community service officer program that was partnered with EMS. So they had a medic that was working during the day that was relieving some of the pressure at that time for EMS. It was a beautiful marriage, but because of budget cuts and whatnot, it went by way of the dodo. The problem, the beauty of the program is that it relieved officers of the day-to-day mundane things that police officers should not have to do. Vehicle lockouts, animal complaints, compliance. Mm-hmm. Those are all things that take time away from law enforcement officers doing their what they should be doing. That being said, moving forward, I think that's an important piece to this public safety model, is a robust CSO program coupled with this now what you have asked for, a dive team, right? Or a reserve program. Perhaps it's both. Very appealing to me personally, from the standpoint of a model, program, or at least a city that has a robust public safety program, and having a dive component to it is very unique. Mm-hmm. Very unique. There's not a lot of law enforcement agencies out there, aside from Washington County or county agencies, because they're by statute, they are required to handle water-related incidents, right? So, a police department having a dive team is unusual.
You're in a unique position, though, because you are part of that.
Thank you, but you're in a unique position as decision makers here to really be able to make that decision and move forward with that, and I think that's what's exciting for me personally, right?
So my direction to you is, when you're ready to come back to us, make sure you communicate with Melanie and get you on the agenda. And I would do that sooner than later. So let's not lose focus of what we're trying to do.
Well, it's ready to go. I've done my homework.
Okay.
Jeff and I have sat down, we've talked at this at length. It really is an issue for council to make a decision as far as funding and what it looks like and what you're willing to pay for.
So bring that back to us.
All right.
Question. Again, I want to go back, I don't mean to go back on this, but I want to make sure that we are covered with rescue still in this new iteration of this.
So rescue, you're talking about, you're saying that you really want us to focus on the rescue component as far as dive, you mean dive team?
Not
rescue?
Focus, but do we lose that in this new, I don't want to lose that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That component. I don't know how you guys feel.
Wouldn't you think you're going to want to rescue? You're trying to get them rescued before you have to recovery, right? I mean, once you get that call, you're hustling to get down there.
So, see, this is...
Educate us, or me.
Yeah.
So like Deputy O'Hare talked about, there are two different philosophies, right? Or two different disciplines, sorry. There's recovery and there's rescue, okay? So the fire departments, as he mentioned, are the ones that do the rescue component to it, that typically has been relegated to those individuals. On the law enforcement side, typically, not always, but typically the recovery part of it, because sometimes it may involve investigation, exactly right. And so there's no hurry, right? So recoveries are not a hurry-up operation. Divers will get there when they get there. So to run a rescue component to it, logistically, now is going to change that makeup, because we now have to make sure that there are divers that are going to be available here in Hudson, right? Whereas now I have them strategically placed because our responsibility in the past has been in the county, you see. So I have divers from St. Joe Fire. I've had divers from Somerset. I've had firefighters from other jurisdictions around the county so that they could respond potentially in those areas for the rescue part of it, so.
And you're saying that that would change potentially with this?
I don't think, if I may, I know you're thinking how to answer that. I don't think it changes anybody's attempt to rescue. That's
All right.
just a different,
Because my question is, what happens when Lakeview takes over and St. Croix EMS has been dissolved? What changes?
Well, John and I would need to get together because before any dive operation, I'm sure it's the same in Washington County, we have our divers go through a pre-dive check, and that is usually done by paramedics, right? They do blood pressure, they make sure that the divers are at a certain, whatever their baseline is, thank you. They would do a checklist. We have a checklist for the divers, so they would be equal partners in that mission, whatever it happens to be. So there is going to be some, there is going to need to be some communication between us because they're going to have to be an active part of that, which I know won't be an issue. But so that's how that part of it, the medical part of it is definitely involved and is an important part, keeping the divers safe.
And we're committed to supporting them. We do with all of our agencies, so.
it's not going away is the bottom line.
No, but what has to be put into place before the
Right.
deadline?
Yeah, just communication, just partnerships and moving forward, making sure that we're all on the same page and what I'm sure, this isn't, John's first rodeo, so I'm sure he's dealt with divers from Washington County, assuming there must be some, yeah. So, but the rescue part of it is, it's a lot more training, right? A lot more training, it's a lot more dangerous.
But you have people doing that currently?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that would continue?
That is my
Goal or?
goal. I would like to see the rescue component to it. And really the reason is because of our very robust traffic that we have here in Hudson, right? As far as boating.
Right.
We've had successful resuscitations, which is it's very unusual. We've had successful resuscitations. They have survived. But the point is that that golden hour, that first hour, it's a cold water drowning. We have managed to revive people for a period of time, which speaks to the rescue component to it, right? So there is value in it.
I guess it just,
Thank you.
I think some of this is just getting clouded. To me, it's pretty clear cut. It's not going away. There's an arm of rescue, there's an arm of recovery. Both St. Croix County, St. Croix EMS, you as a dive team, and Washington County and Lakeview are all going to be there and assist in doing what needs to be done on the river. That's not going away.
I would agree with that.
But is there something that the council needs to do, some actions that they need to take in order to make sure that everything is
That
continuous?
was, once he gets his operations, we need to figure out where we put it financially.
Right,
Okay.
essentially what's gonna happen is Jeff and I will discuss this and we'll figure out how he envisions. I don't know what Jeff is envisioning, as far as what he wants.
Yeah.
And part of that is I need to educate him, right?
Right.
So he needs to educate me on what you all are willing to fund. Because that is gonna be a big part of it moving forward, is funding it.
And bring that number
Yep.
with. Good?
Yeah, so any action that needs to be taken?
Not at this point. I will keep, like I say, I've got a plan, I've
Get
got.
on the agenda when you're ready to present.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Excellent. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Deputy.
Yeah, thank you.
Point of order on the previous vote on first responder. You had mentioned that comes to council. Doesn't a committee tabling an item, does that need council approval?
I don't know what are you
On
doing?
first responder,
Oh, this body?
right.
Oh, we didn't vote on that, did we?
No, we did vote on that.
And
We voted to wait
Postpone, yeah.
to postpone.
Okay.
Does that need to have a council discussion? You had mentioned that this is coming up to
I don't
council,
believe so, but I can certainly get legal clarification for you.
Thank you.
Number 6, discussion possible action on Lakeview EMS transition. John?
I can give you guys an update where we're at. Last month I talked about our hiring process that continues to go very well. I had reported last time that we hired eight people. All 8 people are still there and doing great. Starting this Saturday, our first new hire will be transitioning from their initial phase of their training onto a scheduled training. And then in the next week, we'll have 2 or 3 more transitioning over. So each week here now, we're going to have people moving over. So we're still on track for the September 9th start date to start to abide by the contract. Our building update, that is still on track for a March-April completion of the building. Obviously, when I say March-April, we're hoping for March, but we had a meeting this week with the contractors, and they just said, barring any issues, we should be good by March.
Let me interject. Plan Commission approves that and will be coming to council at our next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. So that's all on track. Our Wisconsin operational plan is sitting, just waiting for the final decisions by the town of Troy. Like I said, Tuesday night, the Village of North Hudson voted to accept our contract. Bridget had to leave. We have a meeting at 6 o'clock at the town of Troy to review the contract there. And then there's been a request from Warren, town of Warren, to come and talk to them as well. So we need those pieces in place before we submit the final operational plan. I was hoping we could have done that beforehand, but I can't submit part of it, and then a week later, then the town of Troy decides to have the contract. So the beauty of the updated operational plan is we just have to do addendums. So we need to send them the maps of the service area, the population, and anything that's changed. So updated vehicles, so we have different vehicles, new that aren't on the current plan. We completed a coverage agreement. Our attorneys, the city's attorney and our attorney, completed a coverage agreement with St. Croix EMS. I think we've talked about that before, maybe at one of the council meetings. That was a recommendation by the state that we have some kind of an agreement if St. Croix EMS is in need of some staffing coverage. It's different than a mutual aid agreement. So the attorneys have completed that. Josh and I have both reviewed it, and I think it's out there ready to go. I think it's approved, right?
Yeah, it got approved Monday night, didn't it?
Yeah, that's what that was what I was going to say.
Okay.
Didn't we approve that?
There was a question that was brought up to me from Josh regarding ongoing education for the St. Croix EMS personnel, because there'll be some overlap when St. Croix EMS discontinues service to when they need to recert. And you guys currently have a contract with Regions under your medical direction, but there's a separate educational contract that's good till the end of the year. And then you'll need to have coverage from January 1st to, I'm guessing, June 30th?
Yeah.
When the state,
2020,
when we all have to recert in the state. So that would be a Regions EMS is willing to work out a contract with you guys, and they can provide that.
Well, that's good.
There's
Yeah.
a fee that comes with it, but it's not a huge fee.
Now,
So,
will you get that to the city, or however, whoever's got to get that?
I'll follow up with Matt over at Regions EMS to get that stuff rolling,
Yeah,
and then I'll get it so it gets in the next city council
that's
agenda.
good to know.
Good.
yeah.
Thank you.
So I think, any questions on where we're at or what's going on?
At what point do we need to discuss space needs?
I was going to ask the
Sooner
same
than
question.
later.
Yeah, right?
So have any discussions been started with the city, and
Yeah,
who on the city is?
Legal teams are working
Oh,
on
okay.
it. So,
They are.
All right,
Okay.
so Kathy's working on it, okay.
yeah, so Carl and Kathy have been working some language out, and I think in Health Partners, we have another attorney that specializes in lease agreements and different things, so I think she's working with Carl on that and Kathy.
Okay.
So I trust they're doing their thing. I see the emails come through all the time, so.
Okay,
So
we haven't
again-
seen anything yet.
You know, I've not seen anything official, it just, they're trying to work out the details, but, again, the plan will be that we have one truck up at the hospital in the start and one down here. At some point, we'll need to move two down here when the construction to the emergency department gets in full swing up there, we'll lose that spot.
What's the expected date for starting that construction?
I honestly don't know that yet. I know
Well, they
they
gotta
were.
get approval from us.
Oh, okay.
And then, again, once that construction starts up there, we'll have two trucks down here and crew until hopefully March. I'm going to say March, but could be April. So that's where we're at.
One bit of information that we received from the city attorney was in terms of equipment.
Oh, yeah,
And apparently there is conversation between, again, the lawyers.
yeah.
Do you,
Good point. So after the last meeting, I asked if you guys knew what the legal situation was on the equipment, and the recommendation was maybe I check with our attorney, which I did, and he in turn contacted Kathy. So there is some of your capital equipment that we would have interest in purchasing, and from what I know, we need to get a third party involved that can evaluate the assets, and, which reminds me, I didn't get you that list now that I'm talking about
I
it.
did find one, so,
You got one, okay.
yeah, Kathy had it, so.
And then it has to be listed as fair market value. So you need a third party to tell you that that's fair market value. That's where we're at.
We'll segue into Josh. You have any updates of working with him and?
Just that, I mean, me and John talk multiple times a week, just to make sure that, Pepperfest is coming up in a couple weeks. Obviously, my main goal is to make sure 911 trucks are covered before I stretch myself and start covering special events. So me and John have talked and worked out an agreement. If I can cover it, great. If I can't, John has agreed to cover it. If we need to do it jointly and both cover it to make sure it gets covered, it will get handled and will get covered. Same with Gopher to Badger, that's this Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about
On behalf
that,
of the
so.
citizens of Hudson, I greatly appreciate you guys working on that, getting
So.
that done.
Other than that, that's it. Like I said, we talk, a couple times a week at least, just check in with each other and see how stuff's going, so.
And I just want to say too that, the relationship between the two departments, I think is, as difficult as this has been, our crews, I hear from our crews, the interactions with St. Croix EMS crews at the hospital is great. Everyone talks to each other, everyone's helping each other out. And Josh and I planning these different events that are going on, we just don't want to step on any toes. We want St. Croix EMS to help where they can, and we're there to back them up if they need it. And I think it's been going really good, so.
It's good to hear. Lieutenant, police update.
National Night Out was a huge success. I don't know how many
Lots
people
of
were able
people.
to go to that, but it was quite successful. We gave out a lot of hot dogs, and I know Big Guys was there, and he gave out quite a few pork chops and some popcorn and such, so it was very successul. The police department won the tug of war.
I saw that.
That's a good thing.
is that why St. Martin's not here today?
That's where
Yes,
Scott's
yeah,
going.
for sure. I think he was a little bit disturbed.
I didn't see you on the rope, though.
No, I was making hot dogs. And then we also started our educational campaign for the hands-free ordinance for the cell phones and vehicles. We're going to be doing that for a 90-day period.
So you got an initial response from that?
Just some interesting comments on Facebook, but not necessarily over the phone to the police department, so.
Any other items for future agendas?
Not necessarily an item for future agendas, just more of a question to this body. Do we see a need to have another meeting before next month? Because next month,
For the ambulance?
yeah, for, as we talk about this transition,
John, you think that we need to do that? Towards the end of
You know,
the
I don't think it's a bad idea, because I think the next things we're gonna wanna talk about is a transition into the space below and into the fire hall.
Okay.
Whether whether it's this public safety group or just a couple members of the group, Josh and I, and maybe Scott St. Martin, Chief Martin too.
We might as well just call a meeting of it, so we could do it on the end of the month. Is that too much towards Labor Day? Is that the Thursday? What is that, Thursday?
That would be the
Either the-
29th?
It moves the calendar, too.
right? Either the 22nd or the 29th is the two dates.
Any of those dates work for you guys?
29th works for me.
I'm available both if we do it at 5.
Same here, I'm available for either.
29th, John?
29th is good.
Let's pencil that in then. Just EMS transition is what it'll be on the agenda. Unless something important comes up, Jeff and Melanie, let us know. All right.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is that Monday night, Roy Schoberg and Marion Weber brought up bike lanes on Vine. Is that something that this
We can
committee-
talk, we can't talk about it now.
No, but I mean, is it something that for a future agenda?
So we can certainly put it on there, but it sounds like it might be being worked at Public Works and/or the mayor's office.
Okay. So I
He
just wanted-
responded to that email earlier today and
Thanks, John.
talked about meeting with Mike Mraz.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard anything, so I would,
But it would be nice to see that
yeah.
after it comes out of Public Works. So once they decide on the bike lane piece, coming to this body first is what you're
Okay, so it
thinking?
would be watching Public Works for their input and then putting it on the agenda here after it's been, comes through.
Anybody want to touch base with the mayor on what he's thinking? Because I
Okay,
know it was part of a conversation they were having
okay, I wasn't aware of that.
on the emails. You didn't get those emails?
Who
Did
were they
you?
from?
Roy.
Oh, from Roy?
Roy had sent an email to, I thought, all of us,
Oh.
and then the mayor replied today.
Okay,
I think they're talking, so if you wanted to talk, but
all right. I will take a look from that email. Thanks.
anything else before the committee? Seeing none?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Let record show that Joyce opposed.
No.
We're adjourned.